The Last Job is a somewhat fitting name as it marks the final time the surviving cast since Series 2 appear together in a movie. At this point it's just down to age catching up with them, especially with Eiko Masayama and Goro Naya, who've been with the series since its pilot. Granted, I suspect they'd both have continued on if they could, but in Naya's case especially, being a heavy smoker and into his 80s meant he just couldn't keep the energy up needed for a character like Zenigata. It's also been quite noticeable that his role's been reduced in the last few movies too, so I suppose he chose to bow out while he was still able. This movie also sees the Fuma clan returning in some capacity, marking the start of an era paying a bit more attention to continuity that's built up over the years. Rule of Lupin III is that there's loose continuity but not no continuity. Toshimichi Okawa once again serves as writer, while Tetsuro Amino is back on as director. We once again have two leading ladies, both played by actresses who were in a Lupin III movie beforehand. Asuka Kagurazaka voiced by Aya Hirano and Romy Park playing the role of Maya. The ending this time is Waro Taiyo, or Laughing Sun. Goemon's purifying his soul in the sea, as Lupin's latest target holds a bad omen over it. As a reporter comments, a statue of Buddha that was once in possession of World War II's biggest loser is being transported to Berlin with Zenigata's help. Lupin soon catches up to them in an ambulance. Goemon launches an attack on the transport, but Zenigata soon realises his own driver is the real Lupin. A fight across the transport route occurs as Lupin takes the statue. Lupin escapes to the water with the statue thanks to the ambulance's roof doubling as a boat. He hides out in a storehouse to admire his prize, but Zenigata had a tracker placed on it. He gives the inspector the slip, but it's not long before he catches up again. As they struggle over the statue, a helicopter appears overhead. Lupin recognises the pilot, a man named Morgana, as he launches an attack. The men aboard the helicopter manage to grab the statue, so Zenigata turns his attention to them. Unfortunately, he's seemingly shot down as Lupin evades missile fire. Interpol pays their respects as Zenigata's buried. Lupin also attends in secret, noticing a dog roaming around as things wrap up. Jigen and Goemon also pay their respects in their own way. Lupin rejoins them, ready to get the statue back. They're interrupted by Fujiko, who's not pleased she was left out of the heist, as well as the same dog making another appearance. Interpol hold a conference about Zenigata's killer, who's rumoured to have ties to the Fuma clan. It also turns out the reporter, Asuka Kagurazaka, was an undercover agent, though she's taken leave, partly due to Zenigata's death and partly because she actually is a Fuma descendant. Lupin explains that this heist will lead to a Fuma treasure known as fujin, though he questions the notion of Morgana being a Fuma descendant. Morgana runs scans on the Buddha statue to discover its secrets, namely its ties to another treasure known as Kagetora. Asuka meets with a priest in Rome to grab a weapon cache. The priest also name drops Kagetora and Fujin as she leaves. Said priest also happens to be Lupin, though Asuka's not happy to see him given Zenigata was caught up in the crossfire and Morgana was never supposed to get the statue. As they fight, Lupin counters that it was her who hired him to steal the statue to begin with. She triggers a cage on him, but he escapes quickly enough and leaves her in a net. The dog appears, revealed to be Asuka's and named Kotaro, biting Lupin and allowing Asuka to get free. Jigen and Goemon kept watch, noting that Asuka controls Kotaro via dog whistle-like commands. Interpol agent Jacopetti heads to the museum where Kagetora is on display, hoping to get to it before Morgana. Security is disposed of rather quickly, however. Not helping that is that Jacopetti was Morgana himself. He moves on the sword, but Kotaro and Asuka attack. The gang arrive as Morgana fights Asuka, though Morgana's not intimidated by Lupin's presence. Morgana shows them a detonator, planning to blow up the whole museum if anyone makes a move. Fujiko didn't get the memo, taking the Kagetora for herself. Morgana throws a few grenades around and runs as everyone dodges. Goemon slashes at him, but he's wearing armour. He tries a second attack but ends up triggering the detonator instead. Interpol aren't pleased at Morgana's infiltration, not to mention confused at Asuka's presence at the museum. Morgana has his men test out Kagetora to try and cut open the statue, but the end result tends to be immolation. One soldier is successful, slicing the statue open to reveal a gem. Kotaro appears and snatches it for Asuka. Asuka races past the gang as they're stuck repairing the car after an earlier mishap. They catch up and run into the sword fighter, who ends up slicing their car. Goemon barely avoids being hit, so he steps up to fight back. Another man attacks Asuka, whom Jigen recognises as someone called Andre. Lupin helps Asuka as Jigen holds him off. Meanwhile, Goemon's suffering a cold from his underwater meditation, causing his concentration to lapse. Despite this, he slices open his opponent's armour, revealing she's a woman. She soon runs, and Asuka does the same from Lupin. Jigen runs out of ammo and gets injured by Andre, but manages to escape to the water. The swordswoman, Maya, turns out to be in league with Asuka. With the gem revealed, they discuss whether to run or to try to find Fujin before Morgana. Lupin eavesdrops on them, receiving a bite from Kotaro for his trouble. Maya heads back to Morgana, who's growing suspicious of her loyalty, and he orders her to kill Asuka. Asuka's taking some downtime but staying alert as Fujiko keeps tabs. One of Morgana's men targets her for the gem, and she runs into Lupin as she escapes him. Hopping aboard his bike, she orders him to get away. They avoid a police barrier and a family of cats, as the man with claws pursues in a bus. Fujiko interrupts, stealing the gem for herself. She also counters Kotaro with a gas cloud to throw him off as she drives away. The bus is destroyed and the clawed man disappeared in the chase, so Lupin tends to Asuka. When she wakes up, she tells Lupin about how the Fuma were assigned to God the Fujin, but she isn't sure what it actually is. Lupin realises she also went to Zenigata with this info, hoping to protect it from Morgana, though it cost him his life. At least that's as far as he knows, as Zenigata wakes up in his grave and discovers a note. Fujiko watches Morgana analysing the gem. It's capable of creating lasers, courtesy of the Fuma and Rome's scientists coming together to develop it. The gem's lasers develop a pattern that will lead to the Fujin, but the container recording it's destroyed. Jigen and Goemon attack, and it becomes clear who Morgana's analyst really is. Lupin makes an escape, realising that Morgana's got what he needs, so he'll likely destroy the base they're in. Kotaro chases Fujiko and Morgana, but gets caught in an electrified net. Goemon attacks them as they escape in a submarine, but it turns out they had an aircraft inside it. Morgana also disables Jigen's aircraft by remote. Despite everything, Lupin managed to get a copy of the gem's data. As Morgana narrows down its location, Fujiko warns that Maya's not on his side, citing her own tendencies to betray people, giving her a sense for others planning to do it. Lupin and Asuka head to a Roman ruin near Vesuvius. Using a helmet with the gem's pattern carved on it, they led to a potential entrance thanks to an emblem that also resembles the Japanese word for wind. Arranging the statuette collection in front of them, Lupin creates a makeshift door handle. Inside they find a collection of art and inventions as Lupin explains there was a student of Da Vinci, Garibaldi, that was the inventor of the Fujin. Led to an area with the word Aeolo, an alternate spelling of Aeolus, and arranging the clock-like mechanism, they discover a small statue, realising that this is the Fujin. Lupin gets caught in a trap as he picks it up, but gets out with some help from Kotaro. As they leave, Asuka tries to contact Maya to tell her to leave Morgana, but she's already been captured. Zenigata shows he's had training from Pai Mei as two officers watch in shock as he surfaces. Andre attacks Lupin and Asuka, so they try to run. Thankfully, Jigen steps in with some heavier firepower. With some help from Goemon, Lupin and Jigen fend off their pursuers as they board a train. Being courteous and paying for tickets, the gang takes some downtime. Asuka explains that Maya's her sister and also Fuma, joining Morgana under the pretense that she was the only active member. Morgana closes in and grabs Asuka while his helicopter distracts the gang. Kotaro pulls his mask off as the gang try to get her back, but he blows up the train and gets away with Asuka and the fujin. Thankfully, Kotaro's on hand to grab the fujin for the gang. Hiding out near Interpol headquarters, Lupin runs tests on the fujin. He discovers it's adjustable and notices the fuma mark looks similar to Morgana's face tattoo. Fujiko then contacts him, giving him Morgana's location and offering his collection of treasure as incentive. Meanwhile, Morgana talks with Asuka, revealing his ancestors worked with the fuma to create the fujin. It's activated by sound, something known as the elf hinted at in a riddle, which he suspects is the voice of a fuma member. He threatens to kill Maya if Asuka doesn't help activate it, seeing as he only needs one fuma's voice. The conversation's interrupted when he's alerted to Fujiko attempting to steal the gem under the logic that he doesn't need it. The gang tie up Kotaro as they prepare to leave, partly for his safety and partly to avoid any more backside biting. Zenigata explains to the other officers that Asuka used a technique on him to simulate death as they head up to Lupin's hideout. He's leaving, but the two of them sense each other as he goes. They discover the dog and the machine, stolen from a hospital and needing to be returned. Zenigata also discovers Kotaro's love of biting as he decides to follow Lupin and take him along as he's Asuka's dog. As the gang approach Morgana's base, they find Asuka and Maya tied to a post. They also get shot at when they get close to it. On top of that, the pole the two women are tied to is electrified. Jigen and Goemon step up to fight, but Lupin hands over the fujin. Asuka refuses to help activate it, not crying out. The coin she spits into it also ends up revealing it was a decoy. Zenigata's pursuit is seemingly cut short when his plane's fuel tank runs empty. Andre attacks Jigen, who decides to make use of both his guns. Fujiko's more interested in swiping the treasure stash while she can. Lupin's surrounded as he fights the Clawed Man. He decides to run, grabbing an aircraft. Jigen, meanwhile, finally takes care of Andre by sending him flying, tying a rocket to his weapon. Morgana's got hold of the real fujin by now. He activates the pole in the hopes of getting either Asuka or Maya to cry out, but they stay silent. Lupin climbs up, but he's immediately attacked. Only Zenigata cuffing his leg saves him at the last second. Kotaro moves in, but Morgana gets away and reactivates the pole. He howls at seeing his owners in pain, revealing that his voice is the elf needed to activate the fujin. Fujiko sets off a cart with the treasure inside into the pole, which allows Goemon to get to the two captives. Morgana decides to test the fujin's power on his base. Lupin flies up to him, confident at the treasure's worthlessness. Morgana laughs that Lupin would even want it, revealing it to be a miniature black hole generator. He fires at Lupin, who manages to dodge and turn the fujin back towards Morgana. The fujin activates above the base as everyone watches. As the sky clears, they fear for Lupin, but he's shown to have landed safely. He and Zenigata exchange a knowing glance, relieved that the other's alive. With the fujin destroyed, Asuka decides she wants to continue working at Interpol, and her main priority should be to help arrest Lupin. As the gang once again go on the run, they pass by Fujiko, who made off with the treasure in a plane, but it was destroyed by a detonator that Kotaro chewed on. I think at this point it was going to be obvious they wouldn't actually kill Zenigata, but Lupin's commitment to the heist was a nice showing of respect to his rival. Leads to a good flip around too at the end when everyone worries Lupin might have been killed by the fujin. Pretty fun plot structure honestly, with one treasure leading to another, and so on. Could make for a good premise and a multi-part story in a future TV series at some point, as I know one or two of the movies play into it a bit. Noticeable step up in animation quality here too. A lot of good action scenes from the outset. Individual enemies also provide some entertainment, with plenty of unique fighting styles on display. It was cool seeing Jigen getting creative in his battle with Andre, given he wasn't having any luck in a direct duel. Also nice seeing Goemon get some prominence again, probably due to the Fuma ties. Of course, the Fuma themselves are a unique take, given they were the gang's enemy the last couple of times they appeared. Granted, given Asuka decides her Interpol ties outweigh her gratitude to Lupin in the final moments, maybe that's still the case. Can't count out Asuka and Kotaro either, as both have a good showing for the most part, even if Asuka ends up captured for the final act. Kotaro's action manages to keep up with the rest of the gang throughout, even if the backside biting got a bit old. Morgana serves well as an upfront threat too, making good use of his minion numbers and his own combat ability. Surprising just how sudden his end was, but I guess that's what a black hole will do. In all, a bit rapid in some places, but not too bad a send-off for the surviving original cast, not counting their final appearance. Next time, the surviving cast's final hurrah as the gang come together for a family lineup. Until then,